When you think about minimalism, you might think about stark white walls and sparsely decorated rooms. Maybe you think about big empty mansions or people living with very few possessions. As a design style, those elements are part of the story, but not the whole thing. Minimalism as a movement has spanned from fashion to art to music to philosophy. It's both an aesthetic style and a lifestyle. What I want to figure out today is, what is the history of minimalism and what do people love so much about it? My name is Ariel Bissett and I am currently renovating my 1850s house. Between sanding and painting walls and tearing out carpets, I've been thinking a lot about interior design. This is A Style is Born, the show where you and me try and learn more about the furniture around us and the design styles that influence the ways we live. This series is brought to us by Wayfair, the place where you can find everything home for every style, including the one that's uniquely you. Like I mentioned, minimalism is a really interesting design style because it has one foot in a visual style and another foot in a lifestyle. So let's start by looking at how this all started in a very specific art movement. Minimalism, with a capital M, emerged in the 1960s in New York. It was a far extension of the abstract art movement that kept getting further away from art as a representative process. Minimalist art sought to remove excess, remove embellishment, and show items for what they were, alone and on their own. Frank Stella, one of the pioneering artists of the movement, famously said, "What you see is what you see," about his early paintings. What he meant was that the painting wasn't trying to be anything other than itself. It wasn't a landscape. The artist wasn't trying to convey a message to you. It simply was what it was. Your perspective of the artwork had a huge impact on how you perceived it, whether you were close to it or standing far away, whether you had a good angle on it or not, whether the gallery was full that day and crowded or whether you were on your own. I think you can see how these attributes would also map onto furniture and interior design as well, how your perspective on these objects changes how you interpret them. Frank Stella's black paintings led the movement with straight, non-representational lines. Donald Judd stacked boxes that made you think about how your perspective changed how you experienced them. And Dan Flavin made neon statues that made you think about the light around you. But I'm sure you're sitting there thinking, what? Ariel, what does New York in the 60s and all these artists have to do with minimalism? Minimalism is about getting rid of your stuff. It's about uncluttering. It's about living frugally. Well, that brings us to this really interesting moment that minimalism is having, this reawakening, but also this kind of reinventing. Suddenly, when you look up minimalism online, I'm sure you won't really find images from this New York art scene. What you'll find is videos and blog posts about people trying to live minimally without so much stuff. Over the past few decades, the minimalist lifestyle has boomed. The goal for minimalists, in a nutshell, is to live a life where all the material goods around you are essential and necessary. Nothing in excess, nothing that you don't need, nothing that isn't important, everything clean and tidy. Doesn't that sound familiar? You can hear the echoes from the art movement, from what those artists were also emphasizing. So how did the fine art movement meld into a lifestyle? One important way was through architecture. The way we build homes and buildings has always been a creative process and has always been influenced by the art world. Many of the architects from the 60s pioneered minimalist buildings. Modernist architect Ludwig Mies van der Rohe had the motto, "Less is more." for describing his design style, which is now the motto of people that live minimally everywhere. Minimalist architects emphasized using glass to bring in light and nature, clean lines, and expose the materials that houses were made of, just like minimalist artists. You can see the steps from minimalist art to minimalist buildings to minimalist interior design to a minimalist lifestyle. So with all of that in mind, let's talk about what some of the common elements of minimalist interior design are. We need to debunk the myth that minimalism is just empty white rooms. So let's talk about what the common elements of minimalist design actually are. First up, showing the material. Instead of painting over or covering over a material, minimalism embraces the materials an object is made of as key to the design. It celebrates the wood, metal, and textures that something is crafted from and shows the joints and nails that hold everything together. Those elements become a part of the furniture piece instead of something to hide. Secondly is highlighting lighting. Lighting is a really important part of all interior design, and minimalism follows this tradition. Natural lighting is used as a material, and the way light affects the room and the furniture in it is seen as part of the design. If you think about the Donald Judd pieces, the shadows they create are as much a part of the artwork as the piece itself. You can also clearly see the emphasis on lighting in minimalist architecture and how that would affect those living spaces. The third thing is avoiding visual pollution. This is where the lifestyle and the design style come together again. Together they can create quiet and contemplative spaces by removing anything unnecessary from the field of view. The fourth element is to have things that are functional and long-lasting. Part of the lifestyle of minimalism is avoiding waste and unnecessary consumption. That means that often it makes sense to think about things as statement pieces or investment pieces. You would be aiming to add items to your home that are thoughtfully chosen, can stand on their own, and don't need to regularly be fixed or replaced, if ever. So now that we've looked at what some of the common elements are, let's look at an example to bring everything together. Let's talk about lamps. Like we just discussed, lighting is key to how minimalist design is carried out. Whether it's natural or man-made, lighting can transform a space. So let's talk about one of the most iconic lamps, the ARCO floor lamp. The ARCO lamp was designed by two Italian brothers, Pier Giacomo and Achille Castiglione, in 1962 for the lighting company Floss, and it's been in production ever since. It's a long, curved metal lamp with a marble base. The design seems pretty straightforward until you learn a little bit more about it. I'm sure you've seen this lamp all over the place, and it's one of those really functional household items that is actually a really important part of design history. According to MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art in New York, who has it in its permanent collection, the ARCO floor lamp solves a practical problem: the need for an overhead lamp that does not require drilling a hole in the ceiling. That sounds pretty straightforward, but that's exactly why it works. It had a very straightforward purpose, and it achieved it in a simple way. It shows the materials plainly, the metal and the marble, and it even has a hole through the marble block that you can use to push a broom handle through to carry the lamp with another person. The design makes no attempt to conceal that broom handle hole or any other parts of the joints. It's part of the functionality, and therefore it's part of the design. I also think the ARCO floor lamp helps us squash that myth that minimalist design is boring or unoriginal. If you have to introduce a lamp into your minimalist home, the ideology would dictate that you choose something simple and functional. But that doesn't mean you have to pick something boring that blends into the background. You can choose a really beautiful statement piece that gets the job done in a simple way, but is still unique and interesting. Minimalist design is still thoughtful and unique. I want to talk to an expert. I want to talk to my friend Paige, who is a prop stylist, and ask her about how we can incorporate minimalism into our homes and why the people that love it so much. Okay, Paige, I'm super excited to talk to you about minimalism. I'm really curious why you think that such a stereotype has built around minimalism.
There's different sides to minimalism, and I think like a lot of like big celebrities or bloggers, like when they showcase their homes, it's like this, like they have a gray couch, they have, you know, one coffee table, and that's not like how I view minimalism, because I think if you look at it a little different and still incorporate, you know, some sentimental pieces and just keeping your home less cluttered, I think it's a little less scary in my opinion.
I like your suggestion of having like one or two sentimental pieces, because it's not about not having things you love.
Exactly.
It's about only prioritizing the things you love.
Right.
So how do you think that you can make minimalism feel comfortable? Like, is there a version of minimalism that isn't sterile?
100%. I know my number one tip for that is lighting. Like, you can take a minimalist room, and if you add in warm lighting, it doesn't feel as cold. You can get like a can light or a spotlight to shine up on a plant or one of your back walls. Even just like a side table lamp with like a amber light tone, that can help a ton. I think a lot of people with minimalist homes will like tuck away a lot of the fun, like personal things they think they need to be hidden. So bringing those back out, I think you still want to have those personal objects, and I think that automatically can make your home feel just a little bit more lived in and welcoming.
That's probably the most Paige tip. Get a good lamp. Just get
Need a good lamp.
Okay, so I feel like based on what Paige said and all the stuff that I'd researched before, I sort of feel like there's three big reasons why people love minimalism. The lifestyle. The tidy home, tidy mind feeling is a nice way to live. It's a way for your external life to help you build a certain kind of internal life. It's functional. With fewer items in your house, there's less to clean, less to maintain, less to update. And finally, it's a really calming and meditative way to live. Whether or not you like minimalism, I think we can all agree that they're very calming places to be most of the time. There's a serenity that comes with not having that many items around you, with having a really quiet, peaceful place, and having that word quiet not just be sound, but be visual as well. On one side of the spectrum, we have people who use it purely as an aesthetic. Think about those Instagram feeds you see where the rooms all look very empty. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have people who use it as a tool to live more meaningful lives and to think more deeply about the items they're bringing into their homes. It's a style you can use to think about what items you bring into your house and how they make you feel. Head over to Wayfair to discover minimalist style for yourself, as well as tons of other styles and pieces. We'd love to know what you think in the comments. Would you incorporate minimalism into your home? And make sure to join me next time for another episode of A Style is Born.